While we get ready for the next panel, I mean, I think you heard it here. Bill Gross said it. Twitter is perhaps the most amazing collaborative tool, was it of all time that he said? I think if you could do a tag map of what's been talked about at this conference, the word Twitter has probably come up about 2,500 times, and we could certainly check our Twitter feed. But to understand a little bit more about what is going on with Twitter, to explain the explosion in Twitter usage and what it all means and what is next, please welcome Biz Stone, who will be interviewed by Adam Lashinsky.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Hi again, everybody. Welcome, Biz.
Thank you.
So, last year at this time, Twitter was so relatively under the radar screen that I don't think we'd even invited you to Brainstorm. But I left Brainstorm in Half Moon Bay and drove to San Francisco and met you guys for the first time immediately after this conference. And the fail whale was a big topic. The service was going down all the time. I wrote an article that explained to the readers of Fortune magazine what this newfangled Twitter thing was. It seems like an eternity ago. We have spot me questions that I want to use to sort of tell us how far we've gone. If we can, okay. First question is, will Twitter make money, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Next question.
Well, we want to see what the audience thinks. Tell us yes or no, please. They're going to vote.
Oh, there's voting.
Yeah.
Can I influence their vote?
Well, you were pretty emphatic about it. Okay, yes, but a pretty big minority no vote there. Next question. Should the company be trying to make money right now? In other words, are you out there really angry, because I want to talk about this, that they're not trying to make money right now?
Vote closed. Mixed.
Interesting. Still, a lot of people yes, but the majority no. I think we have two more questions. What's the next one? Oh, do you use Twitter? You could probably do a hand raise just as easily.
I like this thing, though. It's actually, is it working, or are you guys
it's
just
working.
faking it?
No, well, there could be a sample set of 7, but I don't think so. We just need to speed it up a little bit. Okay,
cool.
Yes.
65%.
Not bad. And very last question, do you prefer Facebook or Twitter? I have one more question, but I'm going to skip it and move on. But let's just see which people prefer here.
Facebook.
Interesting.
77%.
Interesting. All right, but a year ago, the usage in this audience, in this room, would have been, I'm guessing, 5 or 10%. Maybe not even.
Yeah, not even.
Okay, so give us an update on where the company is today compared to where it was a year ago. Number of people, whatever other metrics you can share with us.
Well, we've gotten much better about hiring now. I think we're up to about 55 employees. We're still kind of stuffed into a loft, the same loft you came by and saw, in Soma in San Francisco.
Very informal. You don't have offices there, right?
There's a couple of conference rooms, but we all work we decorated it pretty nice. We got birds on the walls and all that kind of stuff. But it's very open and flat, and anyone can walk up to anyone else. I mean, we very much have a culture of over-communicating whenever possible internally, because I think that was some of our initial problems were, that old adage of when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. We thought, hey, we're 10 guys in a room, we must all know what each other's thinking, and that's not true. So as we grew up, we realized it was really important to spend a lot of time communicating.
And you don't talk about your number of users, but what can you tell me about the size of the service?
Well, we have a lot of growing still to do. I mean, in general, we feel like we're about 1% into the journey of Twitter. So and we, I think for one thing, the level of awareness is way bigger, I think, than the level of engagement right now. And that's something that we have to focus on over the next few weeks and months, is saying, okay, everyone in the world is hearing about Twitter, so they're going to Twitter, and then what? And that's where we have to do a better job, where we traditionally haven't, of positioning the product in a relevant way.
Interesting. How are you going to do that?
Well, I think one of the things we've done that's really, really worked is we've said, hey, look, here's Twitter. You can make a tweet. And then people say, what the hell is a tweet, and why should I be doing this? But if you instead say, look, here's Twitter search. What do you want to know about your product, company, brand, neighborhood, the loud noise you just heard outside your house, whatever, type it in. And then they see everyone talking about their product. Let's say your Palm, it's Palm Pre, they're going crazy. The next question is, how do I get involved in this? So it's a much easier way of saying, okay, now you're asking me, how do you get involved? That's much better than the first approach. So we realize that what we need to do is we just need to position our product better. We need to say, it's not what we initially thought it might be, which was this very rudimentary kind of social tool, keep up with friends. It is a communication and information network. It is for discovering and sharing what's happening right now, and we can help you do that, and we need to. That's what the site needs to convey when you first visit it. And I think there's a lot of stuff we can do with search and with trends and all that sort of stuff to get you immediately engaged in the service, whether or not you even have an account.
You've resisted some traditional company things. I mean, for example, you're the head of PR, right? More or less.
Yeah, we don't have an official PR, but what we try to do is answer as many questions as we can, and we try to spread it around as much as possible. I do a lot of blogging, but I have for the last 10 years, so it's not unusual. But yeah, we don't. I mean, obviously, we don't need to pitch stories about Twitter. Evan and I have always shared the same belief that if you just really focus on the core product and you get a product that's compelling, then you don't need to ask people to write stories about it. They'll use it, they'll love it, and they'll find interesting things to write about it.
And this is Evan Williams, the CEO.
Yes.
Talking about.
Co-founder and CEO.
So the big topic in business circles certainly in Silicon Valley, certainly in the venture community, and I was only half joking earlier when I expressed it in terms of anger, is why the hell are you guys not making money? And my first question is, why do you think people are angry about this? Well,
to answer the first question, I don't know if it's angry, but I think there's a lot of people who really like Twitter and want to see us succeed. It's like a nice, loving mom who wants to make sure you're eating. They're like, come on, make some money so we know you guys are going to be around, and we want to know you're taken care of. And I think that's a legitimate concern, because we are building a company to last, and one of the key, defining factors in that is we make money, therefore we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah, but there's another strain that's the people who like to be dismissive, who say, these guys are a joke, they can't even make money. Sure, a lot of people are using it, but there's no business model. There's no plan.
Right, well, that's not true. And when you become a tool that's relevant, important, timely, and it's being used by individuals around the world and companies and organizations for a huge variety of reasons, and the network is robust and reliable, there's a lot of ways of making money on that. But to answer the second part of your question is, we need to focus on value before we optimize for profit. We can't optimize for profit before we've got a lot of valuable features that deliver this value to all of our users, organizations, businesses across the world. So that's what we're more focused on than anything else.
Now, before I ask the what, I just want to ask you, when are you going to start trying to make money, or when will you implement plans that will give a vision of your business plan?
The plan is to do that this year. I think today.
I'm sorry, you said the plan is to do that this year?
This year is to show some signs of life from a revenue perspective, sort of a phase one kind of approach.
Have you hired a head of sales?
No, there's no sales. There's a product manager who's researching the way that businesses, both small and large, are getting value out of Twitter, and we're trying to say, and we're talking to those businesses, and we're trying to ask ourselves, how can we add more value there so that it's even more meaningful to them? So the first step is something that we're going to be launching. It may be launching right now, I'm not sure, but it's either launching today or tomorrow. And that's basically a suite of, it's an educational sort of subsite of Twitter called Twitter 101 that we developed specifically because we've had all these questions from businesses, small and large. How do we use Twitter? Will you come in and talk to us about Twitter? And we're a small enough team that just doesn't make sense to go around the world explaining how companies may use it. So it's use cases, it's techniques, it's best practices, and it's basically a suite of documents that explain all these things for companies. And we're going to put that out there this afternoon, I hope, if not tomorrow. And that's kind of a first step in more of an educational kind of step.
And, you know, I'm familiar with the answer, but tell the audience, give us a very brief example of this, of how businesses are using Twitter.
Well, there are lots, but one of the most recent ones from a big business perspective is this Best Buy endeavor that Best Buy is doing, and they're calling it Twelp Force. And the Twelp.
Twelp?
Like help force, but Twelp.
Oh, okay. If you say so.
That's what they're calling it. So the idea is to get, I think it's something like 700 employees all across Best Buy. They all are available on Twitter for any consumer or customer to ask any question about anything that they sell. And they'll get back to you in a timely fashion on Twitter in a very polite, helpful way. And that's an approach that we've seen other big companies do, which is generally an approach towards a better customer experience and more engagement with customers. It doesn't necessarily tie to direct sales, such as what Dell is doing, which is physically selling $3 million worth of goods off Twitter. But on the other end of the spectrum, you have little mom and pop shops like restaurants. And I saw a cookie baker in New York City the last time I went there. They said, you know, follow us on Twitter and we'll send out a tweet when the cookies are warm from the oven. And if, you know, a couple dozen people local people run over after that and buy all the cookies, these two guys can go home. They're like, we just sold all our cookies. I mean, for them, it's huge. They're not necessarily going to go build a whole website, buy ads for the website, and do all this marketing. But if they can get a chalkboard and a mobile phone and say, follow us on Twitter, and we'll tell you when the cookies are warm, you know, and we've heard story after story. There's a pie company in San Francisco. They told us we're selling 15 to 20% more in revenue since we started tweeting the pie of the day. And there's the big spectrum, the big companies, you know, and the small companies, and we're sort of enamored with both ends of the spectrum.
Now, you know, a hacker stole some information from your computer servers, and TechCrunch published some of that stolen information, which included your financial projections from February of 2009. It shows that you have some confidence that the revenue is going to be coming in sooner rather than later. Can you give us some indication of what that first revenue will look like? You're getting some already from carriers, right? From text messages?
Not really. I mean, we're not getting anything really, you know, significant. And I'll also add that the documents were thought exercises more than anything else.
Okay.
I think if there's any takeaway from those, it's just that we're thinking big and we're thinking long term and we're trying different stuff. And it just gives you an idea of the scope and the level of thinking we're doing, but it shouldn't be looked at as anything specific. I mean, if anyone looked at that Excel spreadsheet, it wasn't very detailed. It was just so you could tell. Someone was like, what if we put a number in here? What does this one look like? So the idea is that we're thinking big, and what we want to do is we want to develop a revenue model that grows with the network and is baked into not just Twitter.com, but the entire ecosystem, and scales and grows and is meaningful and relevant to everyone who uses Twitter and is not something that feels tacked on.
So it's sort of a popular game in the Valley for people to have lists of monetization ideas for Twitter. I don't really want to tick down the list, but you've seen everyone's lists. Can you tell me one that on people's lists that you think, yeah, that's a good idea?
Well, I mean, the commercial accounts thing is something we've been talking about forever, which is an added layer of services that add even more value to the experience for consumers and for businesses. So what are some of the elements in that would make Twitter more valuable?
Mm-hmm. To Best Buy, for example,
Best Buy,
in their
for example,
Twelp campaign.
Yeah, maybe they want more feedback from their Twitter account so they can Twitter better, so their customers are happier. Maybe they want a simple verify badge so that people can trust that it's really Best Buy. We've started to experiment with that with personal accounts that are prone to impersonation. But that could be a meaningful feature. We're still exploring in that area, but there's that. I mean, there's advertising. People always throw that on there, but I mean, we haven't to date. We haven't wanted to optimize for sort of traditional web advertising. Like you said, it requires a sales team. We're tiny. What are we going to do? Stop working on keeping the site up and you three guys go sell ads? I mean, it didn't make sense, and it isn't necessarily relevant to do a traditional advertising.
Two more quick things from me. We're going to have a lot of questions, I think, from Spot Me and from the audience. First, will will Twitter sue either TechCrunch or the hacker who stole your intellectual property?
I don't know. I don't want to comment too much on any kind of ongoing investigation type stuff. I think in general we have a responsibility as a company to look into these things and see what makes sense.
You have lawyers, so you're suggesting that the lawyers are investigating this?
I think more along the lines of we're just kind of thinking about it and collecting information. The biggest thing for us in that was to reach out to current and potential partners and make sure that you know that these notes were not representative necessarily of all of our thinking. These were unpolished notes, not meant for public consumption, that didn't necessarily reflect how we really thought. And so one of the first things we had to do right away is to call up folks and say, listen, you know, some internal notes that we were writing down it doesn't reflect our relationship or what we're feeling. I mean, I think one of the bullet points just said cult, and all of us in the office are trying to figure out who said that and what did that mean.
Right.
You know, so.
Have you discussed it with the FBI at all?
I don't want to comment about that stuff.
Okay. You told me a few minutes ago that you feel like Twitter is entering its golden period. Tell us what you meant by that. What you mean by that?
Well, it's just that we spend so much time in catching up with popularity and getting ahead of things technically.
You killed the fail whale, by the way.
Which we set it free.
Set it free. The fail whale was this diagram that or this image that you put up every time, and it happened a lot that the service went down a year ago.
It was meant to be an uplifting image that I found on a stock photo site of a lot of little birds lifting up a big whale and saying, hey, it's a big job, we're all working on it. But no, so we spent a lot of 2008 just trying to get ahead technically of the unexpected popularity, and that was a bummer because we really weren't delivering a lot of value to our users. We weren't building anything new. We weren't able to do that. And now that we're ahead of things technically, and like I said, we've done better about hiring. We have great designers now. We have product people. We've staffed up from an engineering standpoint. We've got infrastructure teams, front-end teams. So we're about to start releasing lots of features, which is totally exciting and thrilling to us. It's been a long time in coming. So that's what I meant kind of by a golden age. I think in the next quarter, we're going to see a lot of cool new stuff coming out on Twitter.
What's a new feature that's coming soon, or at least at a high level? Well,
the very, very high level idea is like I said, is to add more value to users. So is to watch how users are using Twitter and interpret what they're trying to do with it. Some of the easy, simple things we've done recently, for example, are when we see that hashtag, we link it to a search result. And that's something that people really wanted, and we figured it out and we made it happen. So I think more something that delivers user value that really affects the overall system.
Okay, I'm going to read a comment from Terry Kawaja. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. I have a Twitter account, but don't feel compelled to inform the world about my daily movements. Why doesn't Twitter differentiate amongst quality of users and followers versus quantity of users and followers?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I mean, I think at some point it may make sense to add some kind of reputation type. I mean, right now there's obviously battling spam and stuff like that, but there's this whole issue of discovery on Twitter is something that we're very interested in doing. How can we surface the tweets, the Twitter updates that are going to be relevant and meaningful to you? And is that all? Does it always mean real time? Is real time the most relevant way of surfacing tweets? When that plane landed in the Hudson and that kid was on that ferry and he happened to be right there and he took that great picture and he shared it on Twitter. An hour later, there was a lot of people just saying, OMG, OMG, OMG. But what you really wanted was, I want the picture of the guys, the people on the wing. That's what I want. Where's that? So maybe there is a way to assign some weight to certain either users or even down to the tweet level that says, was this the thing you were looking for? I mean, the key thing is, how can we deliver a better experience in surfacing the tweets?
It's interesting because that suggests, it sounds like you're thinking along the lines of an algorithm.
Well, there's a lot of algorithms in programming. We got scientists.
Who wants to ask the first question from the audience? Let's bring it over here,
Michael.
please.
Right?
Hey there, Anthony Masucci from dailyfinance.com. I was wondering, Biz, why do you think, in your personal opinion, 2009 was the year that Twitter sort of gained all this popularity? It's been around for a couple of years. Why now? What happened in January that set it on fire in Google Trends, for example?
Yeah, it's like one of those things where you're an overnight success, but you've been working on it for 2 or 3 years. I don't know that there was any one specific thing. It seems like every time that there was a major world event, I mean, and it sort of began with the election. The presidential election was big for Twitter. And then there would be earthquakes in China or LA, and there would be explosions of news about how Twitter beat the AP to this story or whatever, and it would spread, or the really compelling stories that were the ones that opened our minds about Twitter. When we saw, it's important to remember that we're not geniuses that foresaw all this. We started with this experiment, and things happened that consecutively opened our minds a little bit wider each time. So South by Southwest 2007, oh wow, this is more than just a way to keep in touch. This is a way that groups of people can move as one, almost like a flock of birds around an object in flight. So choreographed, so beautiful, but really just rudimentary communication. And then it started to break out into world events. And again, these were always newsworthy, so they always contributed to a bump. When we saw people helping each other during a fuel shortage in Atlanta and coordinating with each other to help find fuel, or tweets coming out of right out of the Mumbai terrorist attacks. And again, big news story. The Moldovan revolts, more recently the elections in Iran. All of these things.
You're leaving out Oprah.
Oprah. All of these things were like big kind of newsworthy things, and I think it was more of a cumulative effect. And then the whole while you had celebrities signing up, and celebrities, I think they certainly helped draw attention to Twitter. So I don't know that I would attribute it to one key thing. Going back to 2007, I can definitely attribute sort of that particular conference that we went to as a definite watershed moment for us. But 2009 is a little trickier to pin things on. It was more cumulative.
Over here.
Michael Parek, just you talked a lot about the mainstream applications for users and for corporations, large and small. Could you talk a little bit also about, flesh out how you're thinking longer term about your role as a utility for third-party ecosystem companies, and how do you see that kind of flesh out over time?
Yeah, that's another thing that made us look really smart. We opened an API. We had an API really early. We opened our infrastructure very early so that people could develop on it, and we had no idea what a success it would be. But it turned out that this platform, or this ecosystem that emerged, was way bigger than Twitter.com itself. It represents most of our traffic in the aggregate. There are over 10,000 awesome Twitter applications and that you can use instead of Twitter.com to interact with Twitter. And when we think about Twitter, we don't think about Twitter.com. We think about the entire ecosystem that's developed around Twitter. And when we think about revenue model, when we think about making money into Twitter, we think also about how it will affect and how the ecosystem will be able to take advantage of all that. So like you said, there are companies being built on Twitter, raising VC on Twitter. There's been Twitter companies that have acquired other Twitter companies. We've acquired a Twitter company.
Have you done any acquisitions since the acquisition of Summai's?
No, it's just been the Summai's acquisition. So I guess the short answer to that is the more value that's added in the ecosystem, the more valuable I think the overall Twitter experience becomes.
I'm going to go to the center here, and then we'll come over here. And I'm going to make an executive decision here. We're going to run over by a few minutes because we have a lot of people who want to ask questions.
Hi, Dave Smith from MediaSmith. Your search is so powerful, your advanced search, and there's talk about Facebook saying that they are going to build out their search themselves, and there's been rumors that Google and Microsoft want to license your API for real-time search. Are you going to build that out? Are you going to license it? It seems like there's so much capability to really do something different than archival search, which is really what Google does, and do real time.
Yeah.
In your Spot Me, you said specifically, will you license it to Google or Microsoft, right?
I think the big answer there is we want the world to be able to take advantage of it. I think you're right. I think it's really powerful. I think that there's still a ton of work to be done on it. I think we have a lot more algorithms to write.
I don't even know what that is.
It's a guy's algorithm. But I think we need to. The point is, I would like to see everyone being able to take advantage of this, and everyone being able to add to it and make it better. If Twitter search is valuable and useful for folks in the world, then everyone should be able to have access to it, and we want to try to do that in however meaningful way we can. So yeah.
He's one of those well-meaning people who wants you to sell it and make money, I think.
Right. I think, but the thing is, even when you let something go, you can still make money on it. You don't have to hoard it.
Yep. Over here.
Douglas Warshaw from Jockopedia. Have you personally ever spoken to Shaquille O'Neal?
Have I? No, I haven't. But Carolyn from our support department got a big kiss from him.
A big kiss. Why? What's the backstory there?
We went to he invited us to a Warriors game that he was playing in Oakland, and Carolyn went over early, and she went over to say hi to him, and because she was the one who had kind of been helping him with his account, and getting him set up on Twitter and stuff, and she went over there early, and he sent out a tweet saying, "Hey, there's a representative of Twitter here. Should I give her a big kiss?" And everyone was like, "Yes, yes." And Carolyn is like this tall, and he was way taller than her, just sitting down. Anyway, so I did not get to talk to Shaquille at the game because he was busy playing basketball. But he's amazing. I mean, that guy is just an amazing. I don't really follow basketball. I started following his Twitter updates, and I learned that he was this wonderful, philanthropic, big-hearted person. And I don't know, it just sort of got me more interested and made me want to watch basketball.
Neat. Right here.
Hey, I wanted to ask you your thoughts.
I'm sorry, just tell everybody who you are.
Oh, Shervin Pishavar from SGN. I wanted to get your thoughts on gaming on Twitter. There's been some interesting games like Spy Master and others. And what do you think the potential for Twitter gaming is, and how you could possibly be a part of that in terms of your monetization plans and payment potentials in those games?
Well, personally, I'm fascinated by gaming. Like, if you zoom way out and you take, there's two things that have been going on from my perspective. I've been working and doing the social media stuff since 1999. First at Zanga, then at Blogger, now at Twitter, and I've seen an overall move towards moving your communication into a public sphere because you get more value out of it than doing just emails and IMs. There's also very game-like activities that go on within these within Twitter and social networks and stuff like that. There's also something happening with multiplayer gaming. There's something very interesting happening there. And if you look to nature and you see that, baby children, baby tigers, whatever it is, they learn by playing games. And that's how they get smarter. And I love this idea of the confluence of gaming, especially multiplayer gaming, and on Twitter, which is sort of allowing for this emergence to take place and allowing people to connect as a group, potentially allowing for some kind of super organism to happen. So I'm very enamored with the idea of games being developed on top of Twitter. And we'll see what happens in terms of revenue generation. I think some of these game companies that are building games on Twitter are making money or are trying to make money. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Over here, please.
Hi, Biz. I'm Mona Williams with Walmart. I wanted to reinforce the need for the algorithm. You can't imagine how many tweets there are in an average 5 minutes about Walmart. Right. And we need help in differentiating between the girl who says, I'm stopping by Walmart for my mom, and the guy that says, I'm looking at the televisions, this is what I think, or I have a question about this. So we look at streams of literally thousands and thousands of tweets that use the word Walmart. If at some point there was a way to to sort that or weight it so that we could literally get customer comments, what they're saying to others about the store experience or about our products. That's something I think we'd be willing to pay for. So just another example for your money-making model.
I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to be looked at there. I also think that it may not necessarily all come from us. There are also really great third-party apps that are building layers for businesses. There's one called CoTweet that I know about, and there's other ones too. I don't mean to single out one, but they create a new interface on Twitter that allows folks like you to be able to better organize all these incoming tweets. The city of San Francisco uses CoTweet to take complaints through their 311 Twitter account about things that are happening. And then we actually have, or I don't know if we still have this, but we used to have this thing called sentiment analysis, which would tell you whether or not people were happy or angry about your product. It was kind of neat, but the engineers didn't want to release it because it wasn't always accurate.
All the way, yep, back there.
Rashik Raman from Yale School of Management. How will you continue to keep Twitter a force for good while with the challenge of monetization? Will you ever be beholden to making money, and will that challenge the openness of the network? It's being used in Tehran during the elections, obviously natural disasters, things like that. How will you manage that balance?
Well, Twitter will always remain free, and we'll continue to add features to it that make it more and more valuable. And we absolutely believe that the open exchange of information can have positive impact on the world, and we'll continue to support that belief. I think the way that we're going to make money is, again, by adding value and making it relevant. And so it's not going to take away from this idea of the timely open exchange of information. It's going to add to it for the people that it makes sense. So for people who are making money using Twitter, if we offer them a way to make more money through Twitter and engage even more successfully with users, great. But that won't affect protesters in Tehran. I mean, they'll still be able to use the tool. So I don't think the two things are, bump up against each other.
We're going to take
In fact, I'll add one more thing.
Yeah.
One of the things we really want to do at Twitter is actually have a real positive impact on the world. And the only way we can do that is by making tons and tons of money. You can't.
It's by what?
Making tons of money. You can't. We're not in this to be altruists. We need to have an extremely profitable, self-sustaining company in order to do good in the world. So we absolutely have to make money in order to achieve these more nobler goals.
We're total of two more, one here and one back there, and they got to be quick, please.
Okay. First of all, JD Lasker with socialmedia.biz. First of all, Twitter rocks, and the 75 Facebook, 25 Twitter figure that you saw up there is going to be 50-50 by next year this time.
Quick question, please, only because it's late.
So tell me about the democratizing effects of Twitter, in Iran, in China. I mean, do you guys think about this? Do you discuss internally when, the Iran protests were happening? And, what do you do about that? Do you try to make it more available to people on the streets? Or I know you're working with the State Department, but, apart from business opportunities.
Right. We're not working with the State Department. Twitter, the goal is always to make it available to everyone all the time. And that's why it sucks when it doesn't work, or you see the fail well, or when we have to perform a network upgrade, which means it's going to be down. And especially if we've scheduled with our partner a network upgrade that happens to be at the exact time as a general strike, which is very important, and it's a global event. So you make decisions with your network partner, in this case NTT America, can we move the date? And it's very hard to move the date, but you work hard and you do it. But that being said, the goal is to remain objective, is to create a simple tool, a simple technology that people around the world can use as a communication information network, and not to place ourselves in the story. That's not something that we want to do.
Even if you like the story, it would.
Even if the story is great, it's not our place to say like, hey, look, we did this. It's not, and by the way, it's not us. And I've said this before, Twitter is not about the triumph of technology, it's about the triumph of humanity. We create a simple tool, people do wonderful things with it. Our job is to create the simple tool, it's not to celebrate what people do with it. It's not to jump in there and say we're part of the story.
One more from back there, yep.
Hey Biz, Adam Bain from Fox Audience Network. I know you guys are pretty proud of actually the working environment that you have for your employees. I just wonder if you can share some of the unique things that you do for the employees. I think in the past you've said to make them happy.
Yeah, we do a bunch of stuff, and we focus a lot on culture and communication. We actually, when we decoupled the technical infrastructure of Twitter, we realized that it also made sense to decouple the teams. So we have teams like infrastructure, front end, but we also have a team whose job it is to make sure all the other teams are happy. So that team is called Team. And that's its own team. And
how many people are on the team?
There's 4 people on that team, and they do other things. But I mean, and that's the other thing is.
This is the new 20% time.
As much as we want to innovate from a technical perspective and from a product perspective, we also want to innovate from a company building perspective. What does it mean to start a company today? What are the corporate social responsibilities of a company, even if it's 2 years old? And how can we challenge the typical notions of authority? Should we, or hierarchy? Should we have a hierarchy of authority, or should we have a hierarchy of people who know what they're doing? And how should we form those teams? We're not going to reinvent the wheel of what a company means, but we are going to spend a ton of time on culture. And when we hire people, we hire for a sense of humor, and do they have a Twitter account? And would we want to hang out with this person? And we're very picky from a culture standpoint. And we meet every Friday and we spend 2 hours together as a team, listening to each other and talking. And so, I mean, we're open to doing more stuff, but the point is that a healthy culture, what I said to Adam backstage is, we're a 2-year-old company, so what we don't want to do is end up being that child actor that got success early and grew up all freaky. What we want to be is Ron Howard, who was a child actor and is now a very successful Hollywood director. So the way to account for that is to spend a lot of time on over-communicating and building a really strong culture.
Now, before I thank Biz, I want to do 2 things. One housekeeping item, which is that we've run over by 9 minutes, which means in 21 minutes, we'll meet for cocktails and dinner in the Horseshoe Garden. Don't forget to give us your feedback by Spot Me. I want to do a low-tech poll before we all leave, which is, this is a yes or no. Do you believe that Twitter, at some point, will make meaningful amounts of money? Yes, raise a show of hands for yes. And a show of hands for no. No one, not a lot of people brave enough to show.
One guy in a blue shirt.
Yeah, you can go beat him up afterwards. Thanks for your patience, for staying a little bit late, everybody, and thank you, Biz.
Thanks, Adam.
Okay.